Alright everybody, welcome back to another Dead by Daylight video. So, I promised yesterday we were gonna, after giving our own feedback on Chucky, we were gonna go over the forums and see what everyone else was saying and give my thoughts on it, and see if there's any, like, opinions or thoughts or, you know, general ideas people come up with that, I agree, disagree with, stuff like that. So, we'll just hop into it. Obviously, this is just Mandy giving, the basic idea here. Let's see. I have no idea if these are organized by likes or by timeline, but we'll see. He's fine in my opinion. I think his cooldown is a bit long, and slice and dice duration is a little short comparing to the cooldown. Some add-ons are underwhelming. For Survivor's perspective, he is quite small, so it's hard to see. But, okay, so the size thing, I think, is something I've heard a lot of people criticize, and I don't think there's any way to fix that. There just isn't. It's just an inherent part of the character and design. Now, I know there's some people who are like, well, Pig, technically, you should die the moment a bear trap gets put on your head. Well, that's different than this, I feel, personally. Cooldown is a bit long. I do think it is a bit long, considering the slice and dice duration. But that's a whole personal preference thing. But, yeah, I would rather the cooldown be shorter and slice and dice stay where it is, or keep the cooldown where it is, but make slice and dice last longer. I said on the PTB I only wanted a 10% increase to slice and dice, and I think they increased that even more to give them 20%. But I do think a lot of times, because some people say the 8% from jump rope isn't enough to justify using it, but I think it's gotten me a lot more hits than it hasn't. And then some add-ons are underwhelming. Mirror shards, a lot of his browns, and I know the browns are supposed to be, I get that. But for the most part, I actually think his add-ons are fine. There's not really too many I can think of where I'm like, yeah, that's almost completely useless. We're going to do a video on Good Guy Eyes, because that's one I know gets brought up a lot, and I'm going to explain why Good Guy Eyes is actually one of the best learning add-ons in the game. But we'll get into that in another video. He's in a good spot, easy to use with some smaller things that require more skill to pull off. Some of his add-ons are quite a bit less effective compared to others, but I'm hesitant since he's already a very strong killer. That's also a good point. We don't want to have a blight situation or a spirit situation where the killer is really good, but also their add-ons make them even, like, way fucking better. I think that's also something we need to consider. As far as he's easy to use but requires more skill to pull some things off, I do agree with that, but I do think Scamper, which I'm sure some people are going to talk about that, does make him even easier to use than he should be, in my opinion. And I know some people don't fully agree with that, but yeah, I don't think Scamper should be as easy or guaranteed as it is, honestly. I think Slice and Dice is in an alright spot. As much as I would want 180s back, I think the ability on its own right now is perfectly fine. Next, from the killer side, I am always laughing and enjoying the experience. I do feel third-person view is the strongest part of his kit. I actually agree with that. From the survivor side, because of the different view he had, I am still adapting to different playstyles. I think he has a good chance to win or lose at the moment. This is a very respectful comment, I feel. I'm actually quite surprised by these. Yeah, I think the third-person camera is the strongest part of his kit. From like a baseline perspective, it's always on, it's always active, and if you can learn Chuck spots, which, also side note, we're going to be making a video on that. This entire forum is just going to give me ideas for videos. Chuck spots, such as Shack. I think Shack is probably the most important one. Anytime a survivor thinks about going to Shack or starts heading there, I get like a grin on my face, because I know I'm basically going to get that hit. There isn't much you can do against Chucky and Shack, especially if Hidey Ho isn't on cooldown. Even if it is, if it's halfway on cooldown, you got 10 seconds before he can basically just railroad you out of Shack pretty fast, especially if he's running Bamboozle or something. But yeah, like, I think the survivor things with Chucky come down to things that are inherently him, and that's the issue. I think a lot of it is just hard for, like, once again, how do you balance that he's so short and undetectable? It's just, yeah. I love Chucky in this game. The power design makes him feel just like how he is in the movies. The voice lines are brilliant. I thought maybe he needs shorter cooldown, longer power duration, but after more experience, I think it's fine. It seems pretty well tuned for now. Things that I do want changed, though. He has some really weak add-ons that I believe to be generally unpopular. Plastic bag, mirror shards, running shoes, electric carving knife. Both these and the running shoes, they feel like they don't make a difference. As well as silk pillow. The downside is so massive it feels like minor benefits. Also, scamper cancel should be patched out. I think the scamper cancel is fine because of it's not something. I mean, I've been playing Chucky almost exclusively for 2 months. I've tried to do it, and like I haven't like really sat down and tried to do it, but I've tried to do it, you know, here and there, and I haven't nailed it down. So I think the scamper cancel is fine. As for the add-ons they mentioned, plastic bag is only useless because most of the people who get hit by it are people on gens that you're not chasing. Mirror shards is only not used because, one, it should be a learning tool and should be a brown. I agree with that. On top of that, it can mess you up because of the sound. Running shoes, the 2% is often not enough unless you combine it with something like hard hat, where the survivor will immediately start leaving the loop. However, there are some loops where it will get you a hit. Electric carving knife, I think it's fine, personally. And silk pillow, while yes, it is a downside and can make you miss hits, I actually like the increased charge time because it lets you fake better, and you can hold it to reposition yourself properly to get hits, specific hits. That doesn't mean I don't think I should change it, but yeah, that's my thoughts on that. I don't think he should be Blight Light. His power is extremely oppressive at all loops. I disagree with that. His power is not oppressive at all loops. Ironically, a lot of the trash loops, the ones that are like, you can do a basic mind game on, his power doesn't do shit. He's also extremely difficult to see, and I often find myself straining to see him. Likewise, at a lot of loops, it feels like I'm being outplayed, and more like I generally can't see him, like Old Spirits. I pretty much like everything else. You just described the entire killer. What? Okay. Okay. Let's deconstruct this. Extremely difficult to see. I do agree with this point. And this is where the whole filter argument comes in. I'm not going to get into a big debate over this, but I think the reason why their reasoning behind because Chucky, his hair is super bright red. I think their reasoning for doing that was to make him easier to see on certain maps. Tiffany's bright blonde, so it's also kind of the same. But I would be cool if maybe when he's not directly in chase, the red stain is a bit bigger or something like that, so people can see him coming if he's not using hidey ho mode. But yeah. It feels like I'm being outplayed. I think they meant to say it doesn't feel like I'm being outplayed, and more like I genuinely can't see him. I can see that argument, but I think this is... I'm going to say this, I think it's a skill issue. I've said this before, I think the biggest thing people do against Chucky is they panic the moment he goes undetectable, and he's just waiting around a corner to hit you. And that's not... Like, I would consider that an outplay from the Chucky. He's waiting for you to make a mistake, sure, but I don't know. It seems fine to me. It's just a me thing, though. Maybe there's some merit to that. I don't know what else they could really do, other than making the undetectable not last as long, maybe? I don't know. He's my new favorite killer. Voice acting is amazing, power is so fun, he's enjoyable to play as and against. Can't disagree with that, in my opinion. Disclaimer, I have never played as Chucky, nor have I watched gameplay from his perspective, or taken any time to read his ability. All I know is that he's a third person. Everything else I've learned is from the survivor feed. Playing as Chucky is always a good time. He has made my return to DVD an enjoyable one, recently coming off an 8-month break from the game. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most fun, I would give Chucky an 8.5. Wow, that's... okay. My favorite feature, the footsteps that appear around the map. I don't know what triggers it, if anything at all, but I find it adds an enjoyable amount of tension while working on generators. I think the footfall is something people don't even really think about on either side when they're playing as or against Chucky, and I'm glad they mentioned it. I think the footfall's fine. And I think the whole idea of the footfall was, especially when he's not in his power, was to compensate for the fact that he's so short. The problem is once you go into hidey ho mode, they don't see the footfall anymore, so... as far as it going around the map to the other survivors, I actually really like that aspect. The only problem with it is that the survivor HUD kind of kills it. And that's not me suggesting get rid of the survivor head. I'm just saying, unless they're really not paying attention, it's not really going to catch anyone off guard for the most part. Unless you're not in the chase, then maybe it will. My least favorite feature, crawling under pallets. I think it refers to some variant of Legion, low pros chain, where special attacks after crawling under the pallet inflict a deep wound. I don't find Chucky particularly impressive. A scamper hit applies deep wounds. That is an interesting idea and one I haven't heard before. Interesting. Maybe if they're injured, like 5 seconds that would feel clunky though. I think I don't know. That's the problem with the scamper changes I hear sometimes, even from myself. It's like, man, that would just feel bad to use. If you make it too slow, then like it just feels bad. If you make it so you can't attack like right after scampering, then it just feels bad. I don't know. Scamper's a weird one. I think slowing it down is the best course of action. Plus, that would give running shoes a bit more of a use case, in my opinion. But yeah, you're going to be hearing "in my opinion" a lot, because I'm trying to cover my bases. I apologize. Pallet Scamper. Speed is... I'm sorry, I don't know why I read that as if it was a colon. Pallet Scamper speed is still too high and encourages the killer to never use Slice and Dice. Instead, just hold on to the ability until a pallet is dropped, scamper through, and basically guarantee a hit. Missed hit cooldown is also far too forgiving. A missed hit should be punishing, but he recovers so fast, he barely loses any distance, which makes countering his already strong power even harder. Alright, first point, I think we're all in agreement on that. We're going to be seeing the Scamper one a lot, and I'm just going to keep saying that. We're all in agreement, Scamper's too fast. As far as never using Slice and Dice, I think that's more a problem of some of the map design. I've said this before, RPD is one of the worst maps to play Chucky on because of all the random bullshit in the way on loops. That you'll happen to hit in, or a crevice that you just go into. Missed hit cooldown is far too forgiving. I agree with this. Here is my counter argument, though. I think it should still have a use case for mobility, but here's how we fix that. Make it tied to an add-on. There's already an add-on that does it. But just make it so that you increase the add-on's missed cooldown recovery and lower it base kit. Do the opposite of what we usually do, right? Because I think this means that the add-on would take up a slot that he couldn't use for something else, right? But it would mean that you would have a playstyle with him where you're using Slice and Dice more for catching up than getting a hit. And I like that, personally. Mind games feel like 50-50, or feel less like 50-50, and more in his favor. Even if you see him, I think you just react a lot slower than someone on normal height. It doesn't register as quickly, in my opinion. That's also a good point. I would love to see if that actually makes a difference with reaction time. Because the red stain is still... Well, no, it's not, because he's undetectable. So never mind. Maybe, yeah, it probably does affect reaction time. Chucky's an interesting one. He fits the game, as most horror icons do, and that is already a massive W. His pseudo-stealth and footsteps are awesome. They really help with the horror atmosphere, which is an important aspect of the game. The first point of view and the ghost of Charles Lee Ray appearing after hooking a survivor are unique aspects, and we all appreciate having unique killers. Not the biggest fan of his voice lines, but I understand why most people like them. The only thing I don't understand is why he plays like a mini Blight. I'm not sure what he could do if that wasn't the case, but it is the only aspect of his power I do not enjoy. So, Slice and Dice, the main point of his power. I think the argument of saying he's a mini Blight is understandable, but I think it's misplaced. The reason why is because Blight is kind of supposed to think like 2 steps ahead with his hits, and I don't think Chucky is supposed to do that. I think the game is trying to encourage Chucky players to constantly go for Slice and Dices, but the cooldown makes it so you don't. And there's no real benefit for hitting a Slice and Dice, and I think that's another problem with it. There's no difference between me hitting a Slice and Dice and me hitting a basic M1, other than the Slice and Dice is faster if I'm farther away, and that's about it. I think Pallet Scammer needs to be toned down, and the base cooldown needs to be reduced. His dash should be the focal point of his kit, not scampering under pallets for free hits. Incentivize the skill interactions. Hard agree. Love the voice lines, but can the Slice and Dice go through without me hitting an M1 on console? Didn't think that was an issue on console, but fair enough. Blah, blah, blah. I think he is almost perfect. Few add-ons should be updated. Mirror shards and plastic bag are almost useless. I know some people want Scamper to be... wait. I know some people want Scamper to be nerfed further. Sorry. But there is no room for it. It already had a good... I can't read. It's already hard to get a hit after it in some pallets. If survivors expect it. The cooldown, the cooldown is pretty big. I don't think it should be less than 15 seconds. Also, in December, I went to Chucky, blah, 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 blah. We dropped every single pallet from afar and create infinites like this. So, yeah, that's also true. I didn't read it out loud, but to the paragraph there where they're talking about pre-dropping all the pallets. I have said, people have seen this when I'm on stream. Nothing irritates me more than survivors pre-dropping pallets and just holding W. And while and I've said before, the counterplay to Chucky is to not pre-drop the pallets. The reason why I hate it when people pre-drop the pallets when I'm playing Chucky isn't because, oh, I can't do anything. No, it's because it means I can only do one thing, and that is Scamper. At that point, you're making it inevitable for me to play in the most boring way because you are. And it just, yeah, and then you get mad that I use Scamper to get a hit, and it's like, okay. But yeah. Hard agree with that. Pallet Scamper is really annoying and should not be in the game like this. He should be able to do it, but it should not result in a hit on such a reliable basis, making it way harder to do, or even toning it down so much that it's not really possible anymore to save the power. Use Scamper and get a hit, and lowering the cooldown is the way to go. Yeah, I think Scamper getting rid of Hidey Ho is a big thing that they could do, so you can't just slice and dice. If you get hit with an M1 after a Scamper, that's your fault. I'm just going to say it. Except at very specific loops. But for the most part, yeah. There are too many killers now that I don't have ability to learn countering them at all. Chucky's release days, I played a lot of Chucky. I didn't have a chance to learn, though. I'll work hard tunneling and died in foreheads. That's a game problem, not a Chucky problem. I like his abilities, voice lines, and mostly his size. Yep, there it is. There's the 180. I knew someone was going to talk about it. The 90-degree cap, which was introduced some weeks before Christmas and removed his flicks. It limits his skill expression very much. Often it stops me trying to use his ability where I could still mess up. And that's the point I make with when I bring up the 180 thing. And I know that the video is like a month old now, and we've talked to death about it. The key word in that sentence was trying to get hits. Right now, when I use Slice and Dice, 9 times out of 10, I know I'm going to get the hit because it's so simplistic. I know I'm not going to get the hit because of where they are, right? But back when you could increase the cap, I would go for dumb hits that I might or might not get. And that's the thing, I don't do that anymore because there's no reason to. Yeah, it's very frustrating. One not so important thing would be his add-ons. They could be a bit more interesting because they aren't that many interesting ones. Why does the one eerie break add-ons hamper as an ability? One more thing, maybe you could change the buttons. Okay, that's a controller mapping issue. That's an accessibility one, and one that behavior is never going to fix, and I wish they would. I hate this killer. Start off strong. Not because of the franchise, but because of his power and especially of how people play him. Mind gaming this killer is hard because of his FOV. Also, you don't really see where he is because of his height. His audio, laugh and stealth, is too quiet for people who don't play on headsets. I have heard this argument, and here is the thing with that. I'm sorry, but if you're not playing with a headset, that's a you issue. But I do understand that it's also an accessibility issue. I don't know. It's just one of those things. His footsteps aren't visible, and I disagree with that completely. I think they're 100% visible enough. His cooldowns after a failed dash attack should be much longer. Agree with that. The add-on which breaks pallets should be removed. It's completely broken. Religion can do this too, yes, but only in Frenzy, and Frenzy is a cooldown. Yeah, and he can only do it in Hidey Ho. Also, it's a bad add-on. Don't run hard hat. He can only do it in Frenzy, and Chucky can only... Whatever. Alright. He should not be allowed to dash a window or a pallet, and then just follow up with another dash. Agree. Wait. No. Does he mean... Wait, do they mean, like, he can't slice and dice into another, like, scamper or window? Because I disagree with that completely. I actually think it's one of the best things about his kit. As far as a fun perspective, and, like... for both sides, because, you know, they can mind game it a bit. You can, like, go, if you know where the pallets are in the windows, you can, like, kind of do, like, a U-turn, whatever. Okay. He should lose his stealth power when being closer than 18 meters to a hook. Alright. I kind of agree with that. I hear a lot of complaints that Chucky's proxy camp a lot, and the reason why they do is because Chucky is very good at proxy camping. Because he can just hide behind something, go stealth, and you have no idea where he is. Yeah, I fully agree with this. That being said, my advice to countering that would be, if you see footfall happening and you're going towards a hook, maybe stop until the footfall's gone. Yeah. Honestly, if you just delete him from the game, that would be fine with me too. Even though I own him, I don't want him. I'd rather play against 3-gen Skull Merchant and Basement Bubbas all day than going against a stealthy mini Blight. Thank you for your patronage. Does anyone feel his hitboxes look super jank? Okay, so the hitbox thing, much like with the whole camping and titling issue someone brought up earlier, that's a game issue that is not a Chucky issue. I think it's more prevalent on Chucky because... technically, his hitbox is actually above him because he has the same hitbox as every other killer. That's why, like, he swings so high up. And I think the issue here... hang on one second. Just making sure I wasn't muted this entire time. The biggest issue is he swings up and down, so it looks a little jank. And I think they're just... They wanted to make sure there was a margin of error for the slice and dice to make it not to have to be super precise to hit. Do I fully agree with that? No, but at the same time, I kind of understand why it's like that. You can't make him completely, fully precision hits, because if you do, that kind of fucks over controller players and newer players to him. So that's a tightrope walk in my mind. Thematically, I love playing against him. It always makes me laugh when he does the middle finger. I find myself hiding more against him than other killers because of his stealth power. I really enjoy the aspect. When he is chasing me, he doesn't always hit slice and dice, which is nice. It feels like I can dodge. Playing against him is super fun. I can't find a fault with him. I mean, I think there are some faults on the survivor end of things, but I'm glad they're keeping an open mind to it. Even though they have a plague profile picture, I'm not going to mention that. As far as dodging slice and dice goes, unless you're out in the middle of the open, which even if you are, there are ways to dodge it. You just have to look behind you, listen for the sound cue, and just do a hard turn left and then slightly curve in. And he probably won't be able to flick and hit you, more than likely. If you're at a loop, just go around the corner. He can't do anything if the slice and dice is active. Yeah. Alright, we got a long one. Overall, the power is pretty fun to play around. The only criticism I have is sometimes on some tiles, the scamper under pallet can be a bit annoying. Not even oppressive per se, just I feel it makes chases awkward and wouldn't be against it being restricted to one scamper per hidey-ho. That's another thing. Yeah, one scamper per hidey-ho. I think a base scamper per hidey-ho would be fine, and then a slice and dice unlimited would be cool. Maybe, because it means I can't just double back on a pallet on some of the shorter loops. So yeah. Or possibly reducing the duration of hidey-ho for each scamper until you decide to charge. That is another one I brought up. Rather than completely getting rid of it, but make it so when you scamper, your ability meter goes down. I don't think it really fixes the issue, but I think it would help. Yeah, and then he says it right there. I think you should be able to scamper as much as you want if you manage to line it up during a charge. Other than that, I find Good Guy extremely fun to play as and against. Just the unlimited scampers is a bit too safe of an option and discourages a lot of people from playing Good Guy from trying to make more risky charges. I feel scampers should be discouraged, and the slice and dice should be encouraged. Play PC desktop, TLDR. I love this. I love this. TLDR, unrelated to my criticism, mostly concerning if this is a bug or not. During Hidey Ho, I feel sometimes those footsteps across the map are not visible, and it makes it unclear how to know if their power is active or not. I'm the second person to say it. Maybe they are difficult to see. TLDR, encourage dash attack. Discourage scamper. Possibly increase the time before Chucky can scamper under a pallet once it's dropped. That's actually an interesting idea. Maybe when you activate Hidey Ho, there's like you can't use scamper for the first 25% of the power. That way, the Chucky has to kind of think about before the loop, but I don't really think that fixes the issue. It just makes it take longer. Considering Chucky isn't really a scary being and more comedy for me, I'm impressed with how well they integrated into the game. He's strong with his lunge attacks, are fun to face. It may be worth increasing the cooldown of a missed lunge attack. I think it's like the 5th one we've seen of that, and I 100% agree. The scamper ability is strong, but I like a killer that subverts what is normally expected. I agree to a point. I don't think we need to gut scamper to never be useful. I don't want that, and I don't think anyone does. But I do think at the moment it just needs some tweaks. Finally, his footsteps seem prominent enough when going around loops to face him, but maybe they could be a bit more visible. You know what? I take back what I said. This is like the 5th or 6th person to mention it. Maybe the footfall is too hard to see for some people. Yeah, maybe they do need to increase how easy it is to see them. Cool character, nice license, great voice lines. Overall, very true to the character from that perspective. 10 out of 10. Gameplay not so amazing. He has the potential to be great, even becoming the next Wesker. He already kind of is. But as he is now, he needs a lot of changes. These are survivors with very little to no counterplay with slice and dice attack on most tiles. I disagree with that. In combination with... Okay, I don't disagree with that. Slice and dice. Miss cooldown is very short. Very little room for survivors to actually benefit from the killer's mistakes. He is also very short, which is part of him and completely fine, but at short loops, footsteps don't seem to be very accurate. Maybe it is a ping issue. So, the footsteps aren't actually supposed to be fully accurate. They are a little delayed. That is not a ping issue. That is inherently part of the design. Because the idea is to give you a general sense of where he is, not exactly where he is. And I think that's fine. I think with enough game time and paying attention enough, you can learn to do it. My only issue with it is when he's in Hidey Ho, it doesn't matter. So, yeah. I'll start with this. I'm a survivor main, Yuichi's particular, so I stick out like an airplane runway light, which is why I call him Banana Man, as we all do. And I have not played as Chucky, but have watched some friends play as him. I really like Chucky and his perks. Batteries included, ramps up in power as the game goes on. Agreed. 2 can play is a fun one because it lets survivors see how it is to go against us when we have flashlights and firecrackers. I just wish I didn't see. I wish I didn't see it in more than half my games. Wait. Okay. I mean, I don't know who you're playing against, but sure. I think there are some hitbox problems sometimes. Oh wait, is that? Oh, friends to the end. Okay, there wasn't a comma there, so that was very difficult to read. Yeah, friends to the end. I think friends to the end is a fine perk. It's decent information. It can cause a snowball, and it's only good on some killers. Like, even Blight and Nurse really can't make too much use out of it other than the information. But killers like Dredge, Singularity, kind of. M1 killers with map movement can make immense use out of it. I think that's fine. Honestly, I think that's how I want more perks designed. I want more perks designed that aren't general use for all killers, but have uses on specific killers. Yeah. Desync, I tend to lag, bad Wi-Fi. He's small, so you really have to keep your eye out for him, but it's the same with any stealth killer. This is true. The difference is Myers is tall. Ghostface, you can look at him and get him out of it. Pig is super slow in hers. Yeah. Playing against Chucky, like any new character, like not pre-dropping pallets on him. Someone who gets it. If you want to play against Chucky, don't pre-drop pallets. He's an he's a 110 movement speed killer. Play around that. His voice lines are fun. His Mori is absolutely hilariously brutal. I love his Mori so much. All in all, I like him as a killer DB. I'm always going to have good games and bad games with any killer and with Chucky. I feel it's about even with both. I guess that wasn't fun against Chucky, but that was a game. I got tunneled off hook by Chucky and Heidi Ho. See, and once again, he says it's not the fault of the Chucky. That's not Chucky's fault. That is a game and player fault. He's almost perfect, but has things that don't make sense. Why does his power uncool? Wait, why does his power? Why is it? Why does his power? I understand he has advantages of being short, but Blight and Nurse don't have to wait 18 seconds to use their power. They can straight up go and kill. I believe these changes will make him the perfect killer. Scamper under a pallet ends Heidi Ho. Doesn't affect windows. Power is active at the start of the game. Heidi Ho duration is 15 seconds. Cooldown is 15 seconds. Scamper under the pallets ends Heidi Ho. I'm cool with that, except for windows. Power is active at the start of the game. I'm okay with this. I would actually like to test it before we actually agree on that. I would like it... Because the problem with this is if you're running lethal... I mean, the survivors get the footfalls, so I guess they know you're coming. I don't know. I've heard a few people say power is active at the start of the game would be nice, but I don't know. Maybe halfway full, not full. I don't know. Heidi Ho duration is 15 seconds. Cooldown is 15 seconds. I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. That's what he meant by on cooldown at the start. Okay. He's fine as is and one of the best killers to play, and he is fun usually to go against for me. He's a masterpiece. His ability hitboxes reduce, and his ability is hard to dodge as a survivor. I disagree with that. You're just not dodging him correctly. You're thinking of how to dodge him like every other killer, and that's the problem. Need an update faster than they do in Chase. They don't update fast enough currently and seem delayed, making him very hard to track and chase. That is the point. The point is to give you a general idea, not an exact position. Killer side, really fun character, not hard to use in any way. Just a press start and turn off your brain. I love it because it brings back good old PS2 era memories for me. I don't know what they mean by that. And he's also really powerful, insanely powerful to be honest. Like his Eerie add-on is almost like Compound 33, and I love his voice line. Okay. You cannot compare Hard Hat to Compound 33. I'm just saying, because you immediately lose your power. Every time I get stopped as Nemesis, I play... Okay. Survivor side notes. It may seem like anime sweaty Survivor Man or something like that, but I don't think Chucky is that fun to play against. His dynamics are really cool, but like, if he activates Heidi Ho, you can't do anything. Slice and Dice is very difficult to dodge, and Scamper is also a bit annoying, but when they're playing for fun, it's really fun. I mean, that's... When they're playing for fun, it's really fun. That's any killer. Like, I mean, if someone's playing Blight and they're going for, like, J-U-B, A-B-C-D-E-F-G flicks, and that's all they're doing, and they're not, like, going for, like, easy bump logic hits, yeah, it's gonna be fun as hell, right? That's a player issue. That's not a killer issue. Now, the game could do better to try to emphasize people to try to play like this, but yeah. I think he's really fun to play, and he's in a good position right now. The only things I think could be improved are his extremely long cooldown and some of his add-ons. Mirror Shards are borderline useless, and Piles of Nails is an awful add-on that counters itself. I actually disagree. I think Pile of Nails is fine in a niche add-on. I'm okay with niche add-ons that only work in certain builds if you play around it. I think that's fine. I do agree with Mirror Shards being terrible. As you need to get some extra stealth, but only lasts 5 seconds. So you can't sneak on a survivor unless you're really close. But Chucky's laughs quite loud when you manually in Heidi Ho, so the stealth is pointless as the laughter reveals your position. Not all the time. You'd be surprised how many people don't pay attention to that. Besides those little details, though, I think he's the best design killer in a long time. Most of his items are still good, make a noticeable difference, but are not insanely strong, which I think is how it should be for strong killers like him. Got a drink. Portable TV does make a huge difference. I'm not a personal fan of it because I don't like in-game perks, personally. Or add-ons and things like that. But it's a really... I do agree, it's one of the biggest difference makers on it, out of all his add-ons. And it's fun as hell. As a survivor, running against him feels very frustrating, owing to the interaction between his size and his red stain. Being so small, he's obviously very hard to see, which is fine by itself, but the difficulty is knowing what direction he's moving at loops until it's too late. A lot of the interaction out of your hands. The stain generally feels really unreliable compared to other killers. This is very noticeable when using Dead Hard, where I have to remind myself to use it far earlier from other killers dashing or not by the time Chucky's stain appears. Look behind you. That would be my only counter to that. Look behind you. Alright. In my opinion, he just has too much going for him. All his stealth killers still need to put in some effort when approaching players, as they can be spotted by alert players at a distance. Chucky only needs regular grass for this, as it is exceptionally difficult to spot him before he's already on top of you. His giggles seem to be intended as a countermeasure for this, but I hear giggles maybe 1 in 10 times he's coming at me. Whether it's due to how infrequent they are, or if matte tiles can block the sound. I don't know, but it should absolutely be made so the survivor near will hear giggles. His dash is a flat power creep pig. It doesn't come without the downsides of being slower than survivors to use it and don't have to be stationary for the charge attack. Okay, so is it a complete power creep of Pig's dash? I can see the argument for it, but here's my argument against that. Pig has complete control of her dash. That's not me saying that ambush is a good ability. It has its uses and its time and place, but that's the one thing it has going for it over Slice and Dice is you have complete control. You can do a 180 spin, a complete fake if you want to at any loop, and there's not, yeah. So I disagree with it. It's a direct power creep. I can see the argument though. But it needs to be more consistent, and potentially the dash attack should be shortened. I disagree. The reason why I don't think it should be shortened is because when it was shortened on the PTB, everyone was running jump rope because it just felt too... It felt too short. I do think maybe you could shorten it a tiny bit, but I wouldn't do it. We don't really care about the perks. Really fun to play killer that can actually keep up with modern loop design and stronger coordinated groups. Voicelines are amazing, power is easy to get into but hard to master as it should be. Stealth is a fun part of the game for me, so it's really up my alley. Playing against him is also a fun experience in my opinion. I know that he's able to get a hit at most tiles and structures in the game, so I feel less safe when looping him. It's good. Dodging Slice and Dice feels rewarding, and due to how long the cooldown wastes a lot of time. It can. The recovery cooldown is a bit much, but if you can get him to overshoot it, it can definitely be very punishing. They didn't mention Scamper in this, so I guess they really don't care or didn't really think about it, which is fine. And I think they're the first person to say dodging Slice and Dice feels rewarding. Like I said, it's easier to dodge if you understand how to do it. Chucky's locked into a terrible POV, so I'll pass on this killer. Terrible FOV is terrible FOV. It doesn't matter that I can see Chucky's entire body instead of giant hands floating on the sides of my screen. It's still unacceptable FOV that we can't fix with Shadowborn or the FOV slider. Alright, moving on. The devs talked very intently that the FOV is the way it is on purpose. It was a balancing thing, and they worked a long time to get it perfect. I don't think it's perfect, but yeah, they don't want to mess that up with FOV sliders and such, and it makes sense to me. The only good thing about this killer is that it's Chucky. Besides, we can't see him. Majority of players give up super early in matches because there's no real counterplays. He doesn't need any perks to help him, so he can get he can go gem regression only as a survivor. It doesn't feel like he has cooldowns. Yes, he fucking does. His vaulting speed is way too fast. Finally, all I can see is that it's a no-brain needed character that can win matches with 3 fingers. His eyes closed while watching the movies. Here's my opinion. Alright. Oh my god. Okay. Alright, I need a drink before this one. Let me start off by saying that people claiming Chucky isn't a good spot gameplay-wise are either killer means that never play Survivor, or being intellectually dishonest about the topic at hand for their own gain. I don't want to be that person that just says, oh, go watch the latest odds video. But unironically, go watch the latest odds tier list. There's a reason he ranked him 4th best killer. Small stature, stealth, pallet loop counter, a dash. He's ranked as a 4th best killer, and it's only been, 6 weeks since his release? 6 weeks is more than enough time for survivors to adapt and find counters, but guess what? There aren't any. He's getting a free health state every 20 seconds because he can flat out ignore god pallets, and has an ability that has a hitbox so forgiving. Half the time I'm wondering if it's a 10-foot AoE because around him instead of a stab. And 20 seconds is generous because half the time you can't even see him at a loop because of his size, and inadvertently run into him anyways. I agree with some of the commenters that after a scamper he needs to deep wound. Every other killer that can ignore a drop pallet by vaulting the downside, Legion deep wounds, Wesker has to use a charge of his power, and his momentum is extremely slow after vaulting. Chucky, free hit, better yet, he can dash right afterwards. So what little distance you gain running away has been made up for immediately, usually resulting in a very quick down. I understand that his small size is an inherent part of the killer, but I won't talk about how he's pretty much impossible to see at even medium-sized loops. But hopefully his other strong points are addressed to make him make up for that immutable quality of his design. I can't read tonight. I'm sorry. Like I said, I think realistically the only thing that is needed is to tone down to an acceptable level is to make him deep wound survivors after a scamper. This allows the survivors some agency at which loops stay without just dying immediately, while still allowing Chucky to injure a healthy survivor like the current version. I think the only time he can down a survivor after a scamper should be if they are already deep wounded. That way a healthy survivor still takes 2 hits to down, just like the live version. An injured survivor has some breathing room instead of just dying on the spot. Once again, the problem with this, and because I heard, we saw that suggestion earlier, make a deep wound, is clarity. How would you clarify to a newer player, or even someone who's played him for a while, that your next hit is going to be a deep wound hit, right? How would you do that without you just having to know, right? This is why I advocate for just getting rid of slice and dice after the scamper, or only letting you slice and dice during the scamper, or only letting you scamper during the slice and dice, because I think that gets rid of 2 of the biggest pain points with scamper, and maybe slow it down a little bit. I think. Don't forget that Chucky can still mind game with his size, so survivors sitting at a pallet won't be the worst in the world. He only really gives god pallets their namesake back against a killer who just flat out ignores them alive. Of course, tweaking power cooldowns and the like will probably be needed, but that goes without saying. I'm also not going to mention the fact that most good Chuckies turn their mouse DPI up to 50,000 to ignore the coded turn rate limits, much like Blight and Oni players, but that's another discussion for a whole another day. On a positive note, hats off to the team for acquiring the license. The character model and voice lines are fantastic. The design and fidelity to the source material is always the best part of the licensed chapter or killers you release, and Chucky's no different. Thank you for providing an avenue for feedback, because due to the popularity, Chucky is seen every other or every 3rd game most nights when I play. I would love to enjoy this killer on both sides, but as he currently stands, he's impossible. It's almost impossible to do so in Survivor, while also feeling like we have some agency in Chase. Fair points. Fair points. I would say the 20-second cooldown is still too long. I think I'm just going to hold on to that opinion. The DPI thing, I actually don't think that works. Because I have increased my DPI massively and tried very hard. People have heard me hit my mouse against my desk. That 90 cap is a 90 cap. Unless you're sliding, then it's a little different. But sliding is different than, directly doing it, right? Hooray! Someone mentions 180s. Brad Dourif. Okay, we're talking about the voice lines. When I started playing him, I didn't actually realize he could scamper under pallets while not charging with slice and dice, and I still do well with him. As such, I find it hard to say how good he is overall. Pre-running does by a fair amount of time on him, and recently learned you only see his scamper footprints when you would normally be able to see the killer if he was normal height, which explains why I kept thinking I was awful at tracking his footsteps. Now I know about it, blah blah blah. I find him tough to mind game, but I don't play against Chucky, blah, blah, blah. Killers want the flicks back, survivors want nerfs, but he's hard to handle at loops, so I struggle to feel he's not far of being exactly where he should be. That's another thing. Like, a lot of these critiques, other than Scamper being a little bit too powerful, not even too powerful, but really annoying and uncounterable, most everything else, everyone is complimenting about this killer, which I think is great. I think he's really well designed for everything except for Scamper, honestly. Feels way too strong compared to Slice and Dice Scamper. I prefer default Scamper be super weak and Slice and Dice Scamper be faster and makes hits with a rush and noise notification more possible. Okay, fair enough. Alright. With respect, does any of this current feedback, there's no shortage of dictating that some or all aspects of his character will be changed at some point anyway. Also a good point. Alright, well, I think, ignore my Twitter feed, I hit that out of habit. I think we're good to end there. Yeah. We've been going for 45 minutes. You're going to see my OBS because I am a degenerate and don't know how to set things up properly. But yeah, I think this was some good insight. I think things to take away are mostly Scamper is too strong as it is, and I think we all want it nerfed. A few people mentioned 180s going away. Some mentioned Footfall being hard to see, which I can understand. Slice and Dice being hard to dodge, I legitimately think is a skill issue. Sometimes. Are there some guaranteed hits with Slice and Dice that are very hard to dodge? Yes, but that's the same way on every killer. If you're in the open against a Trickster, guess what? You're getting hit. I don't care. Oh, but it's some loops. Yeah, at some loops, not all loops. He's hard to mind game, fair. He's a little hard to see from far away. I think that's kind of the point. Maybe if they made the Slice and Dice rev up louder, I actually think it would be a buff and a nerf, and I'd be cool with that. If like the yelling was like universal, maybe. I don't know if that would be too much or not, but yeah, maybe. But yeah, some good feedback, and I appreciate everyone in this forum for the most part. I don't even want to say for the most part, almost entirely, being very respectful with their points. No one was like being vitriolic or sounded upset. It's refreshing to see. In any case, tell me what you guys think. I know we did the video yesterday, and I asked the same thing, and it's not engagement bait. I am legitimately curious. I love reading what people had to think about certain killers and whatnot. But I'll see you guys tomorrow. I love y'all. Notifications and stuff are below. And yeah, bye!